Hi, I'm Tradena, and I want to tell you something that's a little uncomfortable to admit. I spent years and tens of thousands of dollars preparing to be ready, learning from coaches, buying programs, following frameworks, and collecting certifications and strategies like they were going to protect me from making mistakes. And you know what happened? I ended up more confused than when I started. I had more tools, more templates, more proven systems, and somehow I felt less capable, less clear, and less confident. If you've ever felt like you're one course away from finally being ready, one certification away from feeling legitimate, one guru's approval away from trusting yourself, I need you to know something. The permission you're waiting for, it was always yours to give. And today, I want to share what changed for me when I finally stopped waiting for someone else to tell me I was ready. Early in my business, I was constantly looking outside of myself for approval. Now, let me be clear, I wasn't some wide eyed beginner with no experience. I was a registered dietitian. I had clinical training. I had a background in developmental psychology. I was already helping people in meaningful, real ways. But somehow, I didn't trust that it was enough. So instead of acting on what I already knew, I kept seeking permission from coaches, from gurus, from people who are supposedly further ahead than me. I believe that if I just found the right expert, the right framework, the right certification, then I would finally feel confident enough to move forward. And honestly, that belief kept me stuck for years, not months, years. I would get close to launching a group program, early versions of what eventually became the Real Talk Reset, which offers support for post-bariatric clients, programs for midlife women navigating GLP-1 medications, and things my audience was literally asking for. But then I'd stop. I'd think, well, maybe the offer is too simple, or a coach would say I needed a different structure, a more sophisticated funnel, a higher price point. So instead of launching and learning, I'd pause, I'd tweak, I'd restructure. I'd go back to the drawing board thinking I was being responsible and thorough. Looking back now, I can see I wasn't being responsible. I was avoiding the vulnerability of trusting my own judgment. Here's the thing about waiting for permission. It costs you. It cost me money, thousands of dollars, and over time, tens of thousands. Now, I don't think coaching or courses are a scam. I really don't. I think learning is valuable, and I've learned from some genuinely good people. But what surprised me was that the most expensive, flashiest programs were often the least helpful. And the ones that promised transformation and seven-figure funnels and all this complexity, those left me more confused. Some of the best value I got came from reasonably priced offers or experts who weren't constantly performing on social media. People who were actually doing the work quietly and clearly. But beyond the money, there was another cost. All the permission seeking cost me time. Time I could have spent helping people. Time I could have spent learning through actually doing the work instead of preparing to do the work. And maybe the biggest cost, it cost me momentum. I was so busy trying to do things the right way that I lost sight of my way, the way that actually fits my values, my background, my audience, and the kind of support I knew people needed. So here's the turning point. What changed? There wasn't one dramatic moment, but there was a realization that built over time. I started noticing a pattern. I'd invest in a program, implement the strategy, and feel off, like I was wearing someone else's clothes. The language didn't seem like me. The approach didn't match how I actually work with people. One example that really stood out was insurance credentialing. I paid a coach to help me with credentialing because it felt overwhelming and intimidating. I thought I needed an expert to walk me through it. And you know what I realized later? What I actually needed to do was fill out the forms and communicate with insurers. That was it. It seemed huge at the moment because I didn't understand it yet. Once I did, it was simple. That experience really changed how I viewed expertise and value. And it made me question how many other things was I outsourcing that I could actually figure out myself. So I made a decision. I decided to act without waiting to feel completely ready or approved. I created something based on what my clients were already asking for, not what a guru said would scale or look impressive. I stopped trying to perfect it first and focused on meeting a real need in real time. That was the first time I really trusted my own clinical experience and psychological training instead of outsourcing my judgment to someone else. And honestly, it was both scary and relieving. Scary because once I stopped following someone else's blueprint, there was no one else to blame if it didn't work. That felt vulnerable. But at the same time, it was incredibly freeing. It felt calmer, less frantic, and I stopped feeling like I was constantly behind or missing some secret everyone else had. For the first time, my business felt intentional instead of reactive. So this is what I built my way. The real talk approach, especially the reset styles that I run now, is a good example of what happens when you stop asking for permission and start trusting what you know. Most of the advice I saw in the online coaching world pushed rigid frameworks, intense accountability, transformation language, before and after photos, and this whole culture of hype. And I knew in my gut that doesn't actually work for the people I serve. Midlife women and men who've already tried dozens of diets don't need more rigidity. GLP-1 users navigating medication side effects don't need more intensity. Post-bariatric clients managing lifelong changes don't need someone yelling at them about discipline. They need safety, compassion, flexibility, and realism. So I built something slower, more human, and more grounded in actual psychology. Less hype and more honesty. And that connected far more deeply with my audience than my cookie cutter program ever did, because it sounded like me and reflected their real lives. Now let me be honest about something else. Running the Real Talk Reset has had its challenges. Email automations have failed, some people didn't read correspondence, some people misunderstood what they signed up for, even though the information was there. At first, I took all of that on myself. I thought I needed to fix everything, explain everything better, protect everyone from confusion. I even went as far as to record an explainer video so that people knew exactly how to complete the checkout process. And then I realized something important. These are adults. I can provide structure, support, clarity, and compassion, but I can't do the work for them. I can't force engagement, and I can't take responsibility for every choice someone makes once they're inside the program. That realization was part of giving myself permission too. Permission to show up fully and to do my best work, and also permission to let go of what's not mine to carry. What I no longer believe. One belief I no longer hold is that someone else needs to validate my ideas before I act on them. I used to believe that if an idea hadn't been approved by a coach or proven by a guru, it was risky or irresponsible. Now I understand that discernment comes from experience, not permission. The truth is, clarity comes from doing, not waiting. Once I stopped asking for permission, things shifted. I made faster decisions, I trusted my instincts more. I allowed myself to experiment without needing everything to be perfect or pre-approved. And here's the irony. That's when my work became clearer, more aligned, and more impactful. I also no longer believe that complexity equals credibility. For a long time, I thought if something felt too simple, it wasn't valuable enough. I thought I needed more steps, more modules, more bells and whistles to justify what I was offering. But the people I work with don't want complicated. They want clear. They want honest. They want someone who gets it. Simple doesn't mean easy. It doesn't mean shallow either. It means you're not hiding behind unnecessary complexity because you're afraid your expertise isn't enough. Your expertise is enough. Okay, so if I were starting again, I wouldn't wait so long to trust myself. I'd focus less on what everyone else was doing and more on what was actually working for me and for the people I wanted to serve. I'd remind myself that learning is important, but self-trust is essential. No one else can tell you when you're ready, and no one else can build your business for you. So here's the one thing I want you to take from this. Notice where you're outsourcing your confidence. Not necessarily change anything right away, just notice it. Where are you waiting for permission to act on something you already know how to do? Where are you delaying because you think you need one more course, one more credential, or one more sign? Because here's what I've learned. The permission you're waiting for, it was always yours to give. And once you give it to yourself, everything changes. Thanks for listening.